horse walks into a bar. The bartender says, "Hey." The horse says, "Sure."
If I roll a 15 or higher on my D20, this podcast is going to be awesome.
Did you know that in the first Mario game with Yoshi, that Mario had to punch Yoshi in the back of the head to get him to stick his tongue out?
Welcome to the Council of Nerds.
The Council of Nerds.
Welcome to the Council of Nerds, everybody. We are back with another episode. I'm joined with Brian and Dan, obviously,
Hello.
as always. Last week we talked about a bunch of nostalgic movies and TV shows that we used to watch as children that made us a little more nerdier than most people. And this week we decided to take one of those and just kind of go a little more in-depth into it. And that would be the controversial Disney animated film of The Black Cauldron.
Bum, bum, bum.
This movie was, well, in the eyes of society in 1985 or 86, was Disney's biggest fluke. It did not do well at all. I'm pretty sure I read that at first they were like, oh, we had a budget of like $25 million to make this movie. And then later it came out it was more towards like $40 million. And then turns out their box office only made like $4 million. So not a profit. Unfortunately, I mean, I find it to be a pretty fun movie. I think the reason it didn't do so well is because Disney was known for, you know, princesses and happiness and, you know, singing and animals talking and all that sort of stuff. And The Black Cauldron is almost the opposite of that. It is dark. It is kind of scary, especially as a child. It is not a typical Disney movie. And I actually really enjoy it. I find it to be an interesting story. But yeah, we are going to go in depth to that. I know that Brian and Dan both have some fun facts. So let's get into that, shall we? Dan, do you want to start us off with something?
Yeah, so I'll start off with, I got two fun facts for everyone out there. There was a familiar face who worked on this movie. He was a concept artist. He's done some Batman movies. He's done a Christmas Halloween movie. Tim Burton. He worked on this movie, concept artist. He actually wanted Horn King's minions to be more like face huggers from Alien. That's something he wanted. He wanted it way darker. And then, this is actually funny.
Ew.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Tim Burton. What do you
expect? And then the funny one is, before we started recording, I was talking to you two, and I was like, did anyone else get like kind of Lord of the Rings vibes from this? And you guys were like, what? No. Guess who Disney wanted to help work on this film?
Peter Jackson.
No, this was before Peter Jackson.
Christopher Lee.
No, it was the guy who was responsible for the Lord of the Rings animated films. They wanted him to work on it, and he turned it down and said his vision would be too dark for Disney. So, those are my two facts. I learned
Disney had a hold my beer moment with that guy.
Mm-hmm.
What I find interesting about that last fact is that, so he said it would be too dark, right? So these, for people who don't know, which is probably every single person out there, this movie is actually based off of a series, like a book series. It's called The Chronicles of, I always forget how to pronounce it. Prydain. I have like a page that has like all the pronunciations for this story. Like all the names and all that, because they're all, so it's based off of Welsh mythology or something like that.
Good luck.
And so that's why the names are all weird. But yeah, so it's based off of I think it's 4 or 5 books in this Chronicles, and the author, what was his name? I have it right here.
Lloyd Alexander?
Yes. I was thinking Alexander Lloyd, but yes, it's Lloyd Alexander. He described it as a children's fantasy. which that's why I find that kind of interesting. That Lord of the Rings animated movie guy was like, oh, it'd be too dark because, I mean, the books were written as a as a children's book, basically like The Hobbit, and so that's why I found that interesting. I actually really want to read these books though because the story itself is very interesting. I read that the movie is completely different than the books, and like in a lot of ways.
They
I have a
usually
list
are.
of all the ways, but I don't know how. Yeah, but I mean, for the most part, like Harry Potter, there's got these points. Narnia is the same. There's the main points they get along with, but in this one, there's just like I have a whole list of all the bullet points that show me like all the differences, and it's so long. I don't even want to go through it. I just thought it was interesting.
Trust me, it's long.
Yeah. I think the books were actually written in like the 60s. It was like 64 to 68 or 9. But yeah. What about you, Brian? What do you got?
Oh, first off, I just have a general question. You know what? No, this is my fun fact. Not really a fun fact, but just kind of an interesting factoid. And then we'll get into the other thing later down the road. It's just something that bothers me about the movie. But maybe the books would be able to explain what I was going to talk about. But it was very nearly the first PG-13 animated Disney movie. The original cuts apparently they had some very gruesome bits in it. There's some concept art that's out there of some of the henchmen developing boils and pustules that bleed and ooze from some kind of something happening to them.
Ugh.
And fans of the movie have begged Disney for decades now to release the uncut version, to go back into their archives and find that film and put a different version out with all that extra stuff in it. Kind of like they did when they did the extended version of the third Hobbit movie. It went from PG-13 to R just because it had some extra guts and glory in it. But I thought that was really interesting that it was almost there, which, I mean, again, interesting fact that the gentleman who worked on the Lord of the Rings animated series thought that this wasn't going to be that dark when this ended up being, I mean, to this day, Disney's darkest film, in my opinion. Like, most of Disney's films don't really touch this unless you talk about other franchises they've absorbed. From a freshly Disney-only perspective, it's pretty dark. It's got some pretty disturbing moments, and it's like, really? You marketed this to kids? Children. Cool. All right. Well,
I mean, I get it. Yeah. I don't know. There's some. I don't know. I guess I'm thinking about nowadays. There's some pretty weird, dark, quote unquote, children's animated films out there.
especially the TV shows too are freaking weird these days.
Yeah.
Kids TV
I think.
shows.
I mean, I'm thinking of even just like Coraline, and even
Yeah.
The Nightmare Before Christmas is pretty weird. I mean, it's a weird. I've never actually seen it, but from the clips I've seen and the stuff I've read, I'm like, wow, that's weird.
I
But
agree
that's
with you
Tim
on
Burton.
Coraline for sure. It's a Tim Burton thing for him to go a bit down
Yeah,
that
I guess
darker
The
path.
Nightmare Before Christmas isn't necessarily like dark, but it is just kind of weird.
It's strange. Yeah.
But there's, I mean, you got to think this is 1980s. Times are completely different.
Oh yeah.
Like I said at the beginning, they're completely used to Disney's, happiness and singing and everything goes right. But I like it. I don't know. I guess now that I think about it, Dan, you're right. There is a pretty good Lord of the Rings sort of vibe to it. And I think that has to do with the darkness and also the Horned King. I get a pretty solid like Sauron vibe. Even his little like orc or goblin henchman dude. That nervous little guy. He's pretty Lord of the Rings-esque, if you ask me. Yeah, dude, this movie, I think that would be cool if they made, or if they released that PG-13 version. because we all know that nowadays that wouldn't be PG-13. I mean, there's so many different rules for that now. Like Pirates of the Caribbean is PG-13, but I don't think that should be PG-13. I mean, other than like the stabbings. Well, I guess that's more PG-13.
Other than the death and the murder and the
But
killing,
I saw that when I saw
the dead bodies
I
hanging.
saw Pirates of the Caribbean when I was like, I mean, yeah. I saw it when I was like 10, and that was like my pirate phase. I went through a hardcore pirate phase, which I'm kind of going through again because I love the game Sea of Thieves. But I saw Pirates of the Caribbean. That was like my favorite movie for a couple years. I think I saw it a few times in theaters. I was just a little kid. I don't know. I also saw Lord of the Rings when I was like 5, so that, you know.
So here's
Doesn't
just
affect it as
an
much, I guess.
interesting placement for the movie. The blockbusters out of Disney that came out just before this movie were Fox and the Hound in 81, and then Tron in 82. And after that, there wasn't a lot of big uproar, like big anything to do. There wasn't any blockbusters. And then you had The Black Cauldron, which is the next movie of note. And then almost directly after that, the next year, you had The Great Mouse Detective. So that's kind of the framework of the Disney era that we're working in. So it's kind of interesting. I decided to just look up the list of the movies that had been released in the 80s. Disney really wasn't putting out those cutesy kids movies in the 80s.
I don't think they were, but I still think, I mean, even think about now. When I think of Disney, I'm not thinking of darkness and, you know, Horned King and scary stuff. I think of, you know, I don't know, maybe it's just because of the movies I watched as a kid for the most part, but I think of, you know, happiness and singing and Disney princesses and Disneyland. It's all about the happiest place on earth. It's never like, hey, here's this ride at Disneyland that's going to terrify children for the rest of their lives, kind of thing.
Sure. And then The Little Mermaid was released 4 years later after Black
So
Cauldron,
there-
and that kind of reset Disney, I think. But
There's actually a documentary on like these so-called dark days for Disney animation. I can't remember if it's on Netflix or if it's on Disney Plus. Could be on both. But it's really good actually. There was so much drama that happened with the animation department. They lost so much money. They were almost completely wiped out. And at one point they were all downgraded from this awesome on Disney's campus building that was just for the animation department, and then they were totally downgraded to basically like a small trailer, and it was almost devastating to that entire department, and a ton of people lost jobs and everything like that. It was pretty bad. But they obviously, with Little Mermaid was like the one that pushed them back up. But I want to go more into the Black Cauldron. I want to talk about favorite characters in this, because I think there's some pretty cool, whether it's cool designs for a character or just a cool written character or whatever. I honestly love the Horned King. I think he is super cool. He looks absolutely terrifying. The reason I want to read the books is so I can learn a little more about him, because
His
there's not
backstory.
much. Yeah, there's nothing really in this movie about him, and he's just terrifying. I don't know what he is. He looks like this creepy.
yeah, I can't tell if
zombie-
it's like a mask or if he's just like
yeah
decrepit.
Well, and then like at the very end, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, at the very end he gets sucked into the Black Cauldron or whatever. I think it was the Black Cauldron he gets sucked into, and his like skin gets like torn off of his skeleton as he's being like taken
so
into the
gnarly.
cauldron, and his like face starts peeling off too, and it's just like, whoa, dude. And then he's a skeleton, so I'm like, I don't think it's a mask. But man, is he! I think his first appearance in the movie, there's like the little goblin guy serving drinks and being nervous, and like all these like, I guess like, barbarian men are just drinking and eating and stuff.
They're all like fanged, all his henchmen. They like,
Yeah.
it's creepy.
Yeah, and then when he enters the room, they just like there's like a breeze and it blows out all the candles. They all get quiet, and then like some magic happens and he just kind of appears there, and everyone's just like, oh crap. And so I think he's just a really good villain if they would have given us more. You know what I mean? I think he is terrifying. I don't know if I think this as a live action movie, that would be a cool redemption sort of story for Disney. Like, hey, here's this animated film we made that almost destroyed Disney. But look at us now. We're making a super cool Lord of the Rings style version of it live action.
Or if they went kind of the Dark Crystal route and made it a Netflix series or
TV
something
series.
about
Yeah,
it,
off
about
of the
more
books.
of the Prydain story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun fact about the Horn King: he's voiced by our dearly departed yet legendary John Hurt, our boy
Oh, I didn't know that.
Ollivander,
Oh, I didn't know
from
that.
Harry Potter. You can hear it when I watched it again. I was like, that's Ollivander. Like I just had this like dawning moment. I know him as well from Hellboy. He's the professor in Hellboy. And
Oh,
stuff
that's
like that,
right.
but he's probably probably back in the day, the voices they had maybe had a little bit more merit than who I know them as now. But he was the name that popped out in the cast list, and but I recognized his voice when he was talking, and he does have a very. I know they put some reverb in his voice when he speaks, and they did some stuff to it, but he's got a good voice for villain work. And my character though that haunted my nightmares when I was a child was the Creeper. I hate that little guy, and he just freaks me out. And I had nightmares of that little dude pulling me by my ankles, like through a dungeon, because he grabs Terran or whatever his name is. He's got his ankles and he's just hopping around looking like a weirdo. And I hate that guy so much. It just freaks me out. But I do now as an adult. I think it's hilarious that he just gets choked out constantly.
Yeah.
Like,
He's just punching back.
It's pronounced Tehran.
Yeah.
My bad.
I had to use my pronunciation guide, okay? I just wanted to use it once. Along with, I kind of want to go along with the Horned King. Absolutely terrifying. They're not technically characters. I mean, they're not named in per se, but the Cauldron born. They're, for people who haven't seen the movie, they're the undead, basically. They're just, the Cauldron reanimates them to life, and they are just creepy. If you've seen Game of Thrones, they're almost like the walkers, the whites, or whatever they call them.
Can I just say how weird it is that they're just gathering corpses? Like, they bring in a wagon at one point in the movie, and, like, a skeleton hand, like, falls out. I'm like, you have a wagon full of dead bodies.
Was it a skeleton hand? I kind of think it had some skin on it.
You can see, like, the arm bones.
Oh, okay. But it has
there's
still,
glove.
like, skin on it, though,
Yeah,
wasn't there?
it's
Okay.
not cool.
Huh.
Like, it's
No,
just,
it's
it's not
dark.
okay. Like,
Not for children, at least. Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know
They're
where they
creepy.
got them, but...
Yeah.
Probably the skeleton shop.
What about you, Dan?
I liked the Horn King as well. I really liked at the end, right before he gets sucked in the cauldron, where he goes from like being all cool and collected, and then like his eyes get big and they get red, and you're like, whoa. Like I hadn't ever seen that before. It was a cool little reveal. I think I like Gurgi the most though. He's the only character that I remembered from that movie until I watched it. He always kind of reminded me of like a Shih Tzu or something like that. And yeah, I just thought it was kind of weird watching him growing up. I don't remember it super well, but I just think he's a cool little addition to the movie. He's got a nice little simple character arc as well. But yeah, I liked his design. I like his role in the movie. And his voice. I like the voice acting too.
Yeah, I was going to say his voice, and I think for context for people, Gurgi is he's like Smeagol. So like he's like the good version, right? He's the nice Gollum, the Smeagol that appears, that double personality. It's definitely the nice version. He's just kind of like he calls Tehran master and just wants to please him, and he also has, I would like to argue, probably one of the top 5 saddest moments in all of Disney movie history. I mean, dude, like Kendra, my wife walked in while I was watching the movie and wasn't paying attention, and then right when Gurgi jumps off into the cauldron, sacrifices himself, she was like on the verge of tears. She was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so sad," because he's like Master has friends. Like he literally says
It's
like
so
Master has
depressing.
friends, but Gurgi doesn't. So I'm out.
So
and
I'm gonna
just
kill
jumps into
myself.
the cauldron, and he just offs himself, and it is so sad because Gurgi is just like this amazing creature that you do not want to see die. And
He's
it's
the
just
noblest of us all. He's
Mhm.
he turns out to be the best.
Yeah.
I kind of see Gurgi so like the Schmeagol Golem,
Mm.
Gurgi Creeper.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a short
Yeah.
little henchman ish that's helping both sides.
He's like a little goblin.
Um, But that's kind of what I kind of there's some way to relate that, I guess. But I think that, like Dan said, is a simple character arc, but he ends up being really the hero of the whole movie. Like without
Yeah.
him, I mean, I guess you could have said that the main kid would have probably jumped, but I doubt it.
He would have done it.
I think
So,
I think it's also safe to say we deserved more Gurgi in this
More
movie,
Gurgi.
and instead we were given a weird old bard who was just
I
cringy.
hated him. The what?
Yeah,
Just every
I
single
did
time
think
he
that
talks.
his harp was funny. I
What'd you say,
thought the
Brian?
harp. I thought the harp was funny. The harp that would its strings would break when he'd tell a lie.
oh yeah, that
I
was
thought
funny.
that was funny. It was
Um,
like a weird Pinocchio-esque kind of thing.
I
But
I just remembered I have a fun fact before I forget it. So there's like a mini Disney sort of cameo in this, and so there's this part where they are trying to find the Black Cauldron before the Horned King finds it. They fall into this whirlpool, which takes them down to this like underground world where all these fairies live. And when a bunch of these fairies reveal themselves, you have to look for it. But one of them is Tinkerbell, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Hmm.
Yeah. Just a little fun fact. And I think this movie, I want to read the books, but I really do think that this story is like really cool. I think it has a lot of potential. Like I said before, I think I said it in the last episode, or yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the last one. I'm a huge fan of medieval style fantasy sort of things, and this is it's almost like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings this isn't even arguable. It is the perfect medieval fantasy story. It is perfect. It is amazing. If you don't love it, you're weird at this point. And if your feelings are hurt because of that, I don't care. It's a great story. Great books, great movies, great background, great history. Everything about it is great. And from what I've read about the books and like reviews on the books of the Chronicles of Prydain, is that they are really good. They are a great child fantasy story. And all I think about is The Hobbit. The Hobbit is a great child's book. It's a great fantasy book. And it kind of excites me to go and read these books because I love this sort of, I guess, universe, this world, this fantasy.
my comment I was gonna make earlier that I stopped myself from. This thing, and like you said, the books might give more credence to why this is set up the way it is or who this guy is, but why is Dalbin, a pig keeper, entrusted with this ethereal pig that can see the future, that is the key to the Horned King taking over the world? Like, who is this pig keeper? Because clearly he seems like he knows stuff, because at the end of the film, he's like good with the fairies, and he knows how to activate the pig's powers and stuff. I want to know more. Like same with the Horned King. I want to know more about who this guy is. He's clearly more than a pig keeper, but if he is just a pig keeper, why him? Like, why this random dude who literally just says, "Okay, kid, the Horned King's coming after this pig. Get out of here. I'm not going with you. You just gotta go and take care of this problem on your
I'm
own."
gonna stay at my house.
Right. I'm gonna stay right here. I'm gonna give you a quarter of a loaf of bread and an apple. Good luck. He doesn't even give him the whole loaf of bread. Like, that bothered me a lot when I watched it again too. Just give him the whole loaf.
I found the answer.
Oh, good.
Weirdly, it was that easy. So, I agree with you. The movie does not describe this in any form. It's just like, hey, here's this old... He seems just like an old peasant man who has this pig that is the key to the world. You know, the world's safety, basically. So, Dalbin, he was a wise old enchanter who resided in Caer Dalbin. I don't know what that is. And was Tehran's mentor. So he was, the way I see it, he's basically Gandalf the Grey. So at the beginning of the Chronicles of Prydain, Dalbin was 379 years old. He had acquired much of his wisdom from the Book of Three, which is actually one of the books in the Chronicles, in the book series. And then it says right here, Dalbin was the only person able to use the letter sticks to evoke Henwen's, which is the pig for people who don't know, to evoke Henwen's powers of prophecy. Dalbin was well capable of defensive enchantments, but hesitated to employ his powers for violence and chose never to kill, lest his powers be destroyed. So he really does kind of seem like the Gandalf sort of character. Tehran is that Bilbo Baggins sort of character, and Henwen seems to be like the Ring. So yeah, that answers that question.
That's that's a difference with the movie because Tehran is able to activate Henwen's power in front of the Horned King, so that's kind of a bit of a difference there. But
there is actually a wiki for this book series, by the way. It's called the Prydain Wiki. So it has everything about it. It's a really interesting story. I think it deserves. I think we should work for the movie industry and just make the film. I don't know. I say we do.
There you go. Who wants to go ahead and invest,
donate,
and we'll get it done. Yeah.
Donate cameras. If you
Venmo
like.
me.
Venmo Dan. As much money as you'd like.
Dan's the treasurer, so.
Lowest amount you can give though is $100, so you have to give that or more, just so you know.
Right, that's the entry.
We will make a 6-book series. We'll do a TV series, low budget, obviously, unless you guys donate that money. That would be really funny, actually, if we were to make. You know, like you remember back in the day where I don't know if you guys did this. My brothers did this a lot. We had the big. In the 90s, the big cameras that you put like a VHS tape
big
in.
camcorders, yeah.
Yeah, you put them on your shoulder, and my mom would use it at Christmas and stuff and home videos. And I remember specifically one time, my oldest brother, it was like probably the year of, maybe the year after, that Star Wars The Phantom Menace came out. And so my brothers and their friends and just all of us, we made like a home video version, like basically our own version of Star Wars The Phantom Menace.
Heck yeah.
And my brother's friend had like a costume makeup kit and was Darth Maul. I barely remember this. I don't know where this VHS tape is. I would love to find it and watch it, but it might have been erased or something. I don't know. But I think it'd be pretty funny if 2020... We'll make posters. 2021, the Black Cauldron, the Chronicles of Prydain series by Logan, Dan, and Brian, and the Council of Nerds.
There you go. It's happening.
Pretty solid. Yeah.
The wheels are in motion.
So get your checkbooks out.
I don't even have a checkbook.
You don't have a checkbook?
No.
I do, but I don't use it. I mean, actually, I don't know if I have a book.
I just Venmo everyone. Huh.
My stomach
you.
just growled super loud, and I know it's gonna come up on the audio. So have fun
Alright.
editing that.
Just turn it all the way up.
Might just honestly, like last episode, I was just like, I was so lazy with editing. I was just like, I know there's a bunch of clicks from Dan in there, and I'm like, I don't even care. There's like a bunch of like pen clicks or something, and I'm like, I don't know. It was so hot, and I was just like, I don't want to do this. But anyway, this was a fun episode. I really do suggest watching The Black Cauldron as if you watch it as a kid and you're like, oh, I've already seen it, it sucked. As an adult, it's not as interesting. I mean, it's not as like this fun. I don't know. As a kid, everything's just imagination, fun, happiness, whatever. As an adult, you just kind of are like, oh, there's so many plot holes in this. But it's a good little movie. If you enjoy medieval fantasy, it kind of pushes you in your imagination, I guess. For me, it does, at least.
It's definitely along a different track, but at the same time, like you mentioned earlier, it's almost the same as many other more traditionally viewed fantasy films. It's just getting past the fact. I think if it didn't have Disney's name slapped on it, there'd be a very different perspective on this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
I mean, think about the Lord of the Rings cartoons. You know,
Yep.
Completely different perspective. But yeah. For everybody out there, we are always trying to make our podcast better. We have plans to start doing different types of episodes. We
Yeah,
want
we
to do
do.
some trivia. We want to kind of, I don't know, get the audience involved a little more. It will be a lot more fun for us and for you guys. But we're having a fun time. We're thankful for you guys. Please join the Discord, the Council of Nerds. If you can't find it or need the invite link or whatever, go on our YouTube, go to one of our videos, and just post a comment, and I'll throw it in there.
Also, those of you who are already on the Discord, use it. We know you're there. Post some suggestions. Throw some stuff out that you want to hear. We're not, we don't want you to be shy if you think that there's something that we can do better. If you want to hear more of Dan's dulcet tones, we can make him the star of an episode. Whatever it is that you guys think that would make it better. I mean, we know there's people on there. We're just looking for feedback. So.
Yeah, and post memes. We love funny, nerdy memes. Whatever, just have fun with it. But yeah, if you haven't yet, like and subscribe on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify as well. We love the support. We have fun with this. We're excited we're starting to plan a lot more. We're getting into our groove with this whole thing, so it's just the beginning, guys.
We're
Got
getting
a
into
lot
our
of stuff
golden
we're gonna
years.
Get into.
It's true.
Yeah.
Back pains and everything.
Dan's getting more beautiful every day. So.
Somehow it's possible.
So beautiful. Yep. But once again, thank you so much, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.
The Council of Nerds.